Welcome aboard, everybody. Today we're going to jump into DEXs on Solana, DEXs in general, but DEXs on Solana specifically, how to use a DEX, how to find your way around with all the different functions that are on some of these DEXs, how to use a DEX aggregator, how to provide liquidity on DEXs so that you can earn yield on assets that you plan to hold for some time and maximize your gains going into 2024. So let's jump into it. So first we got Raydium here on the screen, as you can see. We're going to launch into the app. So the beautiful thing about DEXs is that it gives you the power to transact, one, with extremely low transaction fees on Solana, that is, and it allows you to swap between different assets without having to use fiat necessarily, or other issues that come up when using centralized exchanges. There's no third party that you have to deal with, high fees, and the lack of listings or whatnot. When it comes to DEXs, for the most part, you're going to find any coin that exists on most of these blockchains is going to be available to you on a DEX. So many coins that you're never going to see on a centralized exchange, you're going to be able to find them very easily on some of these DEXs. So this is the UI right here, the swap UI. That's going to be the first thing that you see when you launch the app. You can connect your wallet using Wallet Connect. If you're using mobile version, I'm on a desktop here today. Um, then you can use other functions if you're using a browser wallet. But I personally like to use Wallet Connect. I can connect my mobile wallet. I'm not a big fan of browser wallets. So if you're, for example, if you're using Trust Wallet, I'm just going to put this out here because this is an issue that I had when I first came to use Raydium, and I couldn't find anywhere the answer to. I spent like an hour trying to get the answer. So if you're going to use Raydium with Trust Wallet, you need to have the Ray token, which is Raydium's native token. You have to have that contract turned on in your Trust Wallet. So if you go to your Managed Tokens list, find the Ray token, switch it on, and then you'll be able to use the Raydium decentralized exchange. Another thing with Trust Wallet, if you see version transaction here in the top corner, you're going to have to go ahead and switch that off in order to make a swap. So just real quick, I'm going to show you how to swap between different assets. So if you go here, this will provide you with your list of different assets that you have on the blockchain. Let's go ahead and switch to what we want to swap to. Let's pick Pyth, and then we're going to go ahead and swap out of USDT today. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a little $5 swap so I can show everybody how it works. When you put in the parameters that you're looking to swap, it's going to show you the swap route that it's going to take, the minimum amount that you'll receive. So I've noticed with Raydium, just as a heads up for you guys, it's going to show you one number here in this top as to what you're going to receive, but 10 times out of 10, I've noticed anyway personally, that when it says minimum received here on the bottom, that's what you're going to get. And I'm going to show you here in a second that that's how it's going to work. You can click more information here. It'll allow you to adjust your slippage tolerance. Then it's going to tell you also what the swap fee is. As you can see here, it's 0.0025 USDT, which is basically, less than a cent, a quarter of a cent. That's what it is here on Solana. If you're on Ethereum, 10, 20, 30, 40, you guys know how it is. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and click swap. It's going to pull up in my wallet here. I hit sign. Make sure when you're doing this that you're interacting with a legitimate website, because if you sign transactions to a fake contract or a fake website, you could lose all the assets in your wallet. I'm going to go ahead and sign this transaction. As you can see here on the screen, it's just loading, confirming the transaction, swap confirmed. So as you can see here, swap 2.5 USDT to 8.63 Pyth. And in this bottom window here, like I was saying, it says 8.67. So that's going to be an issue that you're going to run into. It's very minor though, and that's how the people who provide liquidity, they get paid. Now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what providing liquidity is. So let's jump over to concentrated. So what concentrated liquidity is, originally a lot of these DEXs were made with AMMs, which is automated market makers. Uh, some of them still are, but the majority of them are now switching over to CLMM, which is concentrated liquidity market maker. Now, with a DEX, decentralized exchange, how all of the trading takes place is between peer-to-peer. So somebody like me provides liquidity and I earn a yield on that liquidity that's provided. That yield is given to me through trading fees and also through rewards from the decentralized exchange themselves. For example, Raydium, as you can see here on the screen, will provide Ray tokens, 15,000 per week for this specific pool, which is $16,000, and that's split up amongst all of the different people providing liquidity in that liquidity pool. So these APRs that you see here, they're adjusted, I believe, on an hourly basis based on supply and demand. So this specific pool, okay, you see it here. This specific pool has $3.8 million in liquidity, $53 million in volume, and so the fees that were generated were high. That's why this APR is so high. If you scroll down to another pool right here, for example, the APR is only 4.5 because the fees are considerably lower. So that is how they judge the trading volume. If we look here, I'm going to show you, I have a position for MSOL and STSOL because when you're providing liquidity, and now obviously it's different for everybody, but for me personally, I like to provide liquidity with assets that are correlated. So MSOL and STSOL, they're both liquid staking tokens for Solana. And the reason that I provide liquidity with these is there's no risk of me losing money. So if you're providing liquidity with something like Raydium and USDC, for example, if the price of Raydium starts to fall, you may wind up with, say you put in 100 Ray and 100 USDC, you may wind up with 170 USDC and no Raydium. And so what happens is then whatever price you bought that Raydium at, you miss out on the potential growth from that price, which is known as impermanent loss. So something to keep in mind when providing liquidity. Some of these APYs or APRs may look tempting. For example, up here with SOL and USDC, 237 APR, you think to yourself, damn, that's really good. But what you don't realize is if you're putting Solana in that you bought for $40 and you wind up losing it because of the price fluctuations, that may put you in a position where now you've exposed yourself to impermanent loss. And if the price does wind up falling where you can buy that Solana back for a cheaper price, it works out well for you, but that may not always be the case. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're putting these positions in. So just to give you an example of how this works, I have a position, like I was saying, with Marinade Solana and Stake Solana through Lido. As you can see here right now, it's 6.18% APR, which is not that good. But when I originally had pooled with this LP, it was considerably better. But now that Lido is getting ready to leave Solana, the trading volume and liquidity in this pool has died down considerably, and so the rewards, therefore, are much worse. As you can see here, with concentrated liquidity, what it allows you to do is choose the range that you want these assets to trade at. Now, if you're LPing assets that are not correlated, this gives you a little bit more control over the impermanent loss. Um, but for me personally, I still would rather only provide liquidity with correlated assets. There's other ways to get yield on assets, single asset LPs and vaults. There's other ways to get yield on assets without having to put yourself at risk of impermanent loss. But as you can see here on this graph, with concentrated liquidity, if it moves outside of the range, then you're no longer earning fees and therefore the APR on that asset. So just something to keep in mind. I'm also stuck in all Marinade Sol. So how I was telling you, if depending on the fluctuations of these assets, you may wind up with only one of the things that you put in because when you're LPing, most LPs, you have to put in two assets. So I put in two, and now I'm only coming out with one. Now I can leave it in. If the price moves back into that range, then I'll get out what I put in. But again, this is a risk that you take. Now with these assets, since they're correlated, it's not really a risk. I'm not losing anything because they're both actually MSOL is worth more than STSOL. So it works out. But it wouldn't always be the case depending on what assets you're providing liquidity with. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Now we're going to jump over to Jupiter. Jupiter, what this is a DEX aggregator on Solana. So how this works is it will pull feeds from all the different decentralized exchanges on Solana to get you the best price. Now, personally, when I'm trading, this is the format that I like to use the most. So if you wanted to swap, for example, between USDT to USDC, let's put in 100. It'll get you the best price, which right now is through Raydium. As you can see, it'll show you the route that it takes. Now, if you refresh up here, okay, Radium's the best right now. Let's see if we were going to do Jito Soul. Okay, so as you can see here, what it does is it's going to send your USDT to Orca to get Soul, then it's going to go to Phoenix to get the Jito Soul, and then it's going to get you out your Jito Soul. So it shows you the routes that it takes. It allows you to set your priority on your transactions. There's a lot of features here on Jupiter. I'm sure most of you have heard of it. If you haven't, it's a really convenient way to get the best prices out of the market, as well as having other functions such as this limit order here that you see, DCA, there's a bridge, and then there's also perpetuals, which are in beta, which allow you to trade with leverage. I personally am a huge fan of Jupiter, and I always use it when I'm trading with a DEX. Um, Raydium originally was what I used because it's available in the US, whereas Orca is not. But going ahead and using Jupiter makes it a really simple process. You're always going to get the best price, and it will split your orders across all different dexes if it has to make sure that you get the best price. So it's a really good way to make sure you're getting the best price and have a bunch of different options available to you as far as transaction priority, slippage, and it provides up-to-date information. Great way to use a DEX is on Solana. Um, I honestly I love it, and I would if I was going to recommend a DEX to use, not financial advice of course, this would be the one that I would choose. It's a new protocol. They're up on everything. They're up on all the latest features, and they provide a great user experience, in my opinion. So let's hop over now. I'm going to show you lending and borrowing protocols, which is another way that you can provide liquidity and earn yield. So here we are now on Kamino Finance. Kamino is also a new protocol on Solana. I believe they are working on doing an airdrop soon. So something to keep in mind for all you airdrop hunters out there. I'm personally not getting involved. I did have an LP, as you can see here, this little points thing. That's how most protocols are doing airdrops right now. I did have an LP in here for a little while, but I wound up taking it out to purchase assets. So as you can see here with borrow and lend markets, this is another way that you can provide supply APYs here and then borrow. So you can just supply, you don't have to borrow, but supplying and then borrowing is a good way to leverage yourself to go long on different assets. So for example, if you're going to provide um, Solana, the base APY for lending on Solana is 3.1 right now. The borrow is 5.3, so that's not an advantageous thing to do to lend SOL and borrow SOL. But let's look USDT. If you were to provide USDT, 3.15 APY plus 2.68 APY in bonk that you receive, and then the borrow rate. So something to look at. Personally, if I'm gonna, I don't do the borrowing thing, but I do some lending. So if you're gonna look at these lending pools, great options, great opportunity to earn some yield on single asset provision. You can also go over to liquidity here, which Kamino Finance also has, and how their liquidity section works is they provide liquidity for these dexes as well. So this is a place that you can come if you don't want to look on individual dexes for liquidity opportunities. You could just come right over here to Kamino Finance, go in, look at one of these different pools they have. They show you the APY here, and they tell you the DEX that it's on, the TVL, volume, and then they auto balance for you. So how I was showing you the concentrated liquidity, where you pick the ranges, they go ahead and they have their own strategies that they employ, which will provide you with the best returns. So they say, personally, I don't have it tested, but if you come in here, they have graphs. Where's the analytics? They have a graph that will show you how it performs. So if you see here, this is just the bottom lines here, show you if you were just to hold the asset, and then this green line is if you're using the Kamino strategy. So as you can see over time here, the Kamino strategy continues to rise. So seems to be a good strategy. Plus 80, plus 0.86% as opposed to just holding the asset, um, which turns out to work out pretty well for you. So if you look here, they also have, they show the historics for the APYs for the pool, and then the fees and rewards for using the pool. So this specific pool is on Orca. This is a 30-day period. Right now, it's earning 8.3% APY, which is pretty good. They even have a section here where it answers all the questions that you may have as to how's the yield created, how is it profitable, is there risk, you have to deposit with tokens, and Kamino they do a great job. You can even do single asset provision here, and then what they do is they'll swap you so that you have both assets, and then when you withdraw, you'll withdraw both assets, but they rebalance it to make it a profitable strategy. So just another option here that exists if you aren't finding what you're looking for on the DEX, or if you aren't finding the optimal strategy for yourself on the DEX, you can come over here to something like Kamino Finance. There's a bunch of these protocols, lending and borrowing protocols, where you have another option to earn some yield and not have to worry as much about managing it yourself. So just another something else to keep an eye on. And again, like I mentioned, they are doing an airdrop, so if you're providing liquidity using their protocol, usually that's how people earn an airdrop. There are specific tasks that you can, go and do to ensure that you're going to get an airdrop, but just using these protocols, generally, they'll reward you somehow. I actually have a friend who was holding Jito Sol, which is the liquid staking token for Jito protocol for Solana. Um, and I don't even think anybody knew they were going to do an airdrop, but he woke up one day and made, several $1,000s just for having held Jito Sol. So people who use the protocols, that's who these protocols choose to reward when they do a token airdrop. So it can be very lucrative at times. Um, but yeah, hope this was informative for you. I'm going to go ahead and post this up. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to drop below. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos. This is my new thing. And like the video if you did learn something new. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop a comment down below and I'll answer whatever questions you may have. This is the beginning of hopefully something great. So I appreciate you guys being here with me. And let's make this money 2024, 2025.